A key mistake shattered Dark and Darker's return to
today
Steam.
We got a spicy update to a story that was pretty big a while back. Okay, when is a free-to-play game not actually a free-to-play game?
When you pay for it.
How do you draw the line? How do you design that? And perhaps how about it's not free-to-play when a developer doesn't actually allow players to
The coin flip emote was from
the whole point of the game without
quest
paying.
from last season.
It's pretty
You had to do the quest.
So we've been covering the saga of the extraction dungeon crawler Dark and Darker for quite a while now. And what's happened recently is it's returned to Steam after it was, let's just say, embattled. It's went on Steam as a free-to-play title. Now, this is a game that performed amazingly well. I believe in its Steam Next Fest, it was actually the most played demo. It had headlines all across the industry because of the legal drama, but it does appear that one short-sighted decision to make the game functionally unplayable for free players is kind of meaning that Iron Mace are already having to make apologies after only 4 days. Okay, the return of Dark and Darker to Steam after a long, legally enforced drama that removed the game from sale should have been an absolute moment of triumph. This was a once extremely wishlisted game, returning the largest platform in Steam after it had actually got some early access stuff on another platform. It should have been there perfectly poised to capitalize on it coming back to Steam, having had months of updates and changes. So this should have been an absolute joy, but it was not. This was first spotted by PC Gamer, and essentially the problem is not that Dark and Darker was some sort of technical disaster. It's not that audiences hate some of the game design, because, like, it's a well-designed game. It's a really good game. It's really fun. The thing that led to Dark and Darker dropping at one point to a 53% positivity rating within 4 days is that audiences thought they were getting a free-to-play game whenever they saw free on Steam. But it turns out it's not really a free-to-play game. And what's interesting here is, in a way, it is like a demo, and then you unlock the real version when you go in. And certainly looking through Steam, seeing the people who are defending this, they're basically saying, okay, it's not free to play, but the point is you basically get an Uber demo, and then if you like it, you can just upgrade and get the full version. So to explain that, right, you can launch the game for free with Squire status. Yes, you can be a humble Squire of the realm. Now, if you're a Squire, that means you get the basic dungeons, 1 character slot, and a default item stash can't be shared between characters. If you then pay $30 for the legendary status, all of that stuff opens up and you can trade items. But normal mode is not about difficulty. It actually describes the limits on item rarity that you're allowed to bring. And that means that if you do really well in this extraction game, you can't actually bring the loot along unless you pay. And that's a pretty awkward thing. And with that, I think you can understand why we ended up with 53% on Steam. Fortunately, though, developer Iron Mace have basically responded, and they titled it "The Philosophy Behind Our Free-to-Play Model." So let's jump in. And you might find it fun that Connor, who researched this story, just left a note for me in the recording. He said, yes, you need to read this whole thing just to understand how silly it is.
So, when was this made? So this is 15 hours old, which means that he probably recorded it and it started getting edited down before the gear changes to normals to begin with, because now we all know that you can bring stuff into normals. But that patch allowing people to bring stuff into normals was on the 10th. That was 6 days ago. So I don't know exactly when he recorded this or how long it took for them to edit it down, but I feel like the release of this being less than 24 hours ago by saying that there's limitations on what gear you can bring into normal mode now is a little bit disingenuous, considering that he had an entire business week to modify his intro.
Just left a note for me in the recording. He said, yes, you need to...
This is even worse, though, because he's saying that he's not even researching this himself. Like, he's got people that are, like, feeding him stuff and saying, like, you need to read the whole thing. So he's making editorial content on something that he hasn't researched himself, and it seems as though he may not have played this, like, all that much himself either, but...
Read this whole thing just to understand how silly it is. So yeah, I think that kind of sets the tone. Basically, it's 1,000 fairly awkward words that are, I suppose, explaining a fairly awkward, bizarre, but also kind of understandable philosophy, which does actually mean it's pretty damn interesting.
He said the game was really fun.
Number one, they apologized, right? That is a good thing, and they went on to acknowledge that originally they had intended for the game to be a paid product in Steam, but they then explained that the reason for the free-to-play launch is both to make sure that cheaters are slowed down, also to make sure that early buyers didn't feel cheated because they didn't like the idea of people who bought it on the prior platform having to buy it in this platform. Therefore, they gave them Squire mode for free on Steam, which on the face of it does seem really goofy. That being said, there is a little bit more to it. So they ended up saying, "We apologize to anyone who felt misled by the game being marketed as free to play and acknowledge that we should have chosen a better method to introduce it in that regard." Now, they then attempt to rationalize their free to play model as being because of their early adopters. And they basically argue that they were unable to distribute Steam keys to all owners of the game on their original platform, which was called Blacksmith, in a way that was fair to both players and that platform. Players...
I mean, that's true. That's true. Steam only gives you a certain number of keys that you can distribute for free to any developer that wants to hand out keys for a game to people. There's a limitation on that. So if they have more sales of the game than there are Steam keys allotted, then yeah, that's a true thing.
Of course, wouldn't want to pay twice, and Blacksmith doesn't want to, instantly lose a whole group of users to Steam.
It's not, they don't give a shit about that. Blacksmith is created in-house. See, and this is what I mean by somebody that doesn't have context and understanding. Blacksmith was created by the developers of the game as a launch platform because of the DMCA claim that happened from Steam. They had to do that because they couldn't find another marketplace to house their game. They used Chaff Games, but they ended up moving away from Chaff because their homegrown platform, their own launcher, was better for them. Blacksmith is homemade.
Now, fortunately...
So it doesn't matter if they lose Blacksmith users. They don't care about that.
2023, Iron Mace had created a normal mode. It was basically designed as a limited version of D&D that kind of standardized the experience, and it was enjoyed by people before kind of going and playing the full game. So they saw that...
I also can't stand how he refers to this as going and playing the full game, because the full game is normal mode. Like, that's the purest form of this game that exists. Normal mode, like the low-geared lobbies of people that are wearing whites at maximum, is the full game. If anything, that is the purest challenge for the game that exists, both on the PvE and the PvP side. And guys that have thousands of hours in this game always go back to normal mode to play through and fight bosses and whatever by amassing whatever amount of gear that they can in the journey, because it's literally the best way to play this game. So they've gotten, the only thing that they haven't gotten, aside from like the trade restrictions and the ability to make more than one character, is ranked. Like it's Counter-Strike 2 ranked. That's the only difference.
This as a perfect free-to-play onboarding experience for new players that would also allow them to upgrade players who had previously purchased the game elsewhere.
And the other thing that annoys me about this, and I'm not trying to knock this guy specifically because of the video that he's making, because I'm sure he's not the only one that has made videos like this that sound inflammatory. But again, like, this video released 6 days after they modified the normal lobbies to allow people to be able to bring gear into them, specifically because of the free-to-play players saying that they wanted to be able to bring in their own gear, and the devs agreed with it. So like, if you have 6 full days, well, let's say 5.5 days, because he released this 15 hours ago. If you had 5.5 days, you had a business week to be able to modify your originating statements, but didn't, even though full well knowing that while the video got edited down by whomever, and then still releasing it, it's just kind of full of falsehoods, and he could have modified this.
Actually, so that was basically the thing. They were going to have their Steam people get it all free to play, and then I suppose have a system to upgrade those players in Steam, and that would be their way of getting around stuff with platforms. And they basically framed this in light of the existing players enjoying that mode, the normal mode, as a break. Thing is, though, they really didn't look at this from the other way, which is that the limited mode put the actual game behind a paywall for any new users. They say,
well, like, he may not care, but the thing that I dislike about this is when you have someone that is apparently making editorial content and is supposedly supposed to be someone that does, I guess, news-related material and is being rather informative or trying to be rather informative. It would be nice if they managed to be, I don't know, somewhat objectively, factually accurate. And it, like I said, it lacks the proper context to have developed this piece of media.
This, we built a full loot extraction game and then forced upon a large contingent of the player base the inability to utilize their hard-earned loot without any workaround. workarounds. We now understand the absurdity of the situation and are looking to make amends. Now, I think when you're a developer and, you finally look at things from the other direction and you're just forced to say, yeah, okay, that was absurd. We hands up.
What's even funnier is that, like, he has people that are researching these things for him. So I don't know how big of a YouTuber is he? 332K. I mean, like, yeah, okay, all right. He's been around for a bit. He's making content people want to watch. Like, I get it.
We admit it.
I don't know, like, it just feels like this one was half-baked.
It was absurd. I do think that that's kind of fair enough. Like, that's the funny thing. If you put yourself in their shoes and then put the blinkers on and just follow their logic that they describe, it is logically consistent, even if it's a little bit goofy and weird. Now, the thing is, Iron Mace, the developer, they really need money, right? And this is not just for, this is not for the Lambos.
I mean, every developer needs money.
This is for legal troubles. That's actually why they licensed the mobile version of this to Krafton and Bluehole, who are actually just about to release their first beta test. Of course, they need this money because of their legal issues. And perhaps those legal issues...
I mean, I think that's irrelevant. I mean, they need money because every company needs money. Like, they need operating capital regardless. Legal issues notwithstanding, I mean, they probably would have... The Dark and Darker mobile thing was being pursued before they ever were in, like, the standing of a lawsuit. It's not like they suddenly end up being DMCA struck and then happen to call up Krafton the next morning, like, we're scrounging for cash. Can we license this to you? Like, Krafton approached them likely months before any of the DMCA shit happened.
Do make this entire
like those business decisions don't get made like inside of a day or two.
A little bit more understandable, right? They need to sell this, right? They did that with Krafton and Bluehole to get some money in. Now they're doing this. They built their audience for a bit. Now they're going to be working in their game out of early access on Steam, the big platform. Finally get money in, but I think it all just feels rushed. And of course, in doing so, they've managed to really scupper their first week back in Steam because basically they didn't think about it from the other perspective, which certainly is something.
I mean, that's not true either. It's not like this is the first time that a company has decided, a game dev has decided to do this. Like, there's multiple instances of companies doing free-to-play demos, trials, whatever. I mean, Destiny 2 is listed as a free-to-play game, and you get about 10% of that game, and then if you want to do, like, literally anything else, you have to pay for every DLC package that exists in the game to be able to do raid content, use or wear certain pieces of gear, play certain storylines. I mean, RuneScape historically has been notorious for this. You get about 10% of RuneScape's game, and then you have to buy the rest of it. Like, that's how the game works. So they list those games as free to play, but they're technically not free to play. This isn't the first time that a game dev has ever done this before. And when you have a game like Destiny 2 that has 600,000 Steam reviews that are 80% positive, right? And the latest DLC, even though everybody says people complain about the latest DLC or like the DLC packages and having to constantly buy your way through content and progress and the seasonal rewards and the $99 like package to be able to get the 1 year like season pack or whatever for Destiny 2, people still buy it, and 75, 73, whatever, last time I looked, percent of the reviews, even on the latest DLC package, the most recent 30 days of 8,000 reviews they got or something, are 75%, 73% positive. So, I mean, again, while people want to review bomb the shit out of Dark and Darker isn't the first game to have made this business model what it is. And there are companies that have done this for years and years and years that are like highly regarded and very, very positive about. I mean, the number of people that play OSRS is staggering, right? And they just buy it. Right. So
ultimately, though,
it's not like Dark and Darker is trying to shove a $60 price tag down somebody's throat, you know? And if I may, Dark and Darker's business model being what it is with the normal mode, especially now that they let people bring gear in, is more robust than either one of those two games I just mentioned. Destiny has less content for free, and RuneScape has less content for free than what Dark and Darker allows people to play.
Game. I mean, look,
by a wide margin.
whole extraction shooter thing, I think there's a hell of a lot to say about extraction PvE gameplay. I mean, we've seen some of that even in the Division, right? Like, that's actually one of the cooler bits of the Division. Where it gets interesting, though, is it moving away from the extraction shooters, because, you know, Tarkov, Grey Zone, they're all their own thing. We've got this, which is in the dungeon crawling format. There is also another fairly interesting game. Now, I will say, like, it's came in my radar because I kind of know the developer and I've talked to a few of them. It's the one from Notorious Studios.
Yeah, I saw this trailer.
It basically is kind of going with
This
that,
also looks like a mobile game.
like, very core late 90s, early 2000s. You got your Tolkien.
It looks like World of Warcraft over the shoulder extraction stuff.
They're essentially doing a an extraction based game experience, but of course, fantasy world. And I really think there's a lot that could go right here. There are so many, you know, games with like fun horde modes or dungeons, things like that. But some of the dynamicism of the extraction mode, it gets you some of the benefits of the battle royale. It gets you some benefits of the roguelite. It's a really smart genre of game, and I guess that's why we've seen so many devs try to shoehorn it into their games. Of course, I'm looking at you, Battlefield, and I'm looking at you, Call of Duty. Anyway, point is, we're getting to the time where it's not just copycats. It is developers taking design inspiration from a genre and then applying it to their area of interest and expertise. That's why I find this whole thing to be kind of fascinating. We're seeing just a new little branch of gaming emerge. That's pretty fun. The other side then is, oh, it's insane. It's insane with this stuff. So basically, here's the deal, right? They were working as an internal team within their publisher. And it's one you'll probably recognize, Mint Rocket. Mint Rocket have done many things. They've done Dave the Diver.
Say who it is.
Anything else
it's
that Mint Rocket
Nexon.
Have done, they don't look
Say
like Dave
Nexon.
The Diver. But anyway, they're actually a subsidiary of Nexon.
There you go.
And the whole thing basically seems that these guys were making some sort of experience highly similar to Dark and Darker while they were at Mint Rocket. Then there was a whole bunch of drama, like actual, you know, serious, is this workplace malpractice? Is this like, you know, company secret stuff? Have you just lifted a bunch of assets and taken them over and then done your own company? At least those are the allegations. So it's been a really crazy situation. And certainly when you look at the screenshots and the descriptions, you're thinking like, those do look similar.
Yo, Jay, what up, baby?
That's just I saying that. I suppose there is the legal
Thanks for the raid, Jay.
Where Nexon,
Get some sleep,
very
homie.
much
I saw you up,
that they
staying up, trying to get ready for the leaderboard kickoff,
and you know, doing all of that stuff. I mean, it had it all the things of a good dramatic story. We had like unauthorized access to a server, breaching, you know, the security protocol of your company, all those things. But anyway, it landed them in a situation where they're free on their own as Iron Mace. They are making this game, but they do have these legal problems with Nexon, and that's continually forced them into really awkward positions. As an example, they blew up on Steam, then the whole story and the drama blew up, then they had to leave Steam, then they go to another platform, then they license the mobile version to another Korean publisher. I mean, man, it's an absolutely crazy thing. Maybe they've just been through so much that their brains are actually cooked, and that's why they didn't see the, I mean, let's be real, fairly obvious downsides of what their free-to-play plan was. Oh dear. Anyway, that's basically that. I've got to imagine they will do their best to fix this situation, and I think when they do fix the situation...
Yeah, the weirdest part about him is making this dark... So, like, he made the Dark and Darker video that he just made was recorded prior to when the patch that added gear to normals came out, like 6 days ago. He put this video out 15 hours ago and never made mention of, like, the changes to normals or anything, and basically slammed them and said, like, in the first 4 days, like, the game got really awful reviews, and like a key mistake shattered Dark and Darker's return to Steam. And it's like like the way, like, him having recorded this and put this out and just like leaving it at face value, unfortunately reads like super disingenuous. Yeah, like, he made a video about it, but there's so much misinformation in here now. Like, it's so beat, you know, like, I don't know, man. Like, it just looks like he's trying to cash in on like the shitty side of the Steam reviews and stuff without giving any credence to like the player base increases and stuff. And it looks weird. He went fucking doomer on it pretty bad. Like it was recorded a week ago. Like the video is 15 hours old, and he had to have recorded it before the 10th because the patch came out on the 10th. So it would have been like the 8th or the 9th when he ended up doing like the recording of it, and then it took them the week to edit it down. Like he read the statement, but then he even quoted like this section about Iron Mace saying that they were going to make amends twice. Like this we're looking to make amends, but he never mentioned what the amends were. Because like if he had waited a few days or at some point in between, they could have made an editor's note or anything and never bothered. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Like I don't agree with his assessment of the situation at all. And also didn't make mention that the Steam reviews have been significantly better in the last like even couple of weeks or a couple of days. Like they're what, like 58% now or something. They never said what the critical issue was. They never said 68%. So we're almost at positive then, because at 70% it goes positive, right? Yeah. So I mean, like I don't really agree with his assessment. I mean, yesterday we saw the highest number that we've seen in a while. Like at 11 a.m. yesterday, they were at 60,000 concurrent. 11 a.m. Eastern was 60,000 concurrent yesterday. So I don't know if it went higher than that since, but I mean to say that they like messed up their return, I think is a shitty way of looking at it. 62K, yeah, there you go. Yeah, like the negativity wave ride is kind of weird. And then he ended up kind of making like this plug for this game that was teased on Twitter. This game was teased on Twitter like the middle of last week or something, was like the first anyone had seen it from Notorious Studios. It looks like an over-the-shoulder camera, like World of Warcraft-esque extraction game that these guys are making. Kind of like cartoony in nature. And I'm not a fan of the over-shoulder camera. I never have really ever been a fan of over-the-shoulder cameras. But he was like kind of glazing on it a little bit, which seemed kind of weird. Like I don't think like the critique, like what he's critiquing for like the public's view of how Dark and Darker was received with its free-to-play model and why they were getting review bombed. Like I can understand the public view of that, but the way that he described some of this stuff was like really off. Like if anybody had any level of contextual understanding with how they went about it in the timeline, especially, like he was trying to say that like they pushed out Dark and Darker Mobile and allowed Krafton to make Dark and Darker Mobile, like to license it out because they needed money for their legal battle. But they were in talks to do that way prior to the DMCA claim. Like that stuff doesn't get decided in like a week. And like when the game got delisted from Steam, they announced the Dark and Darker mobile port that Krafton was licensing like 3 days later. Like there's no way that they would have like looked over contracts and done all the negotiating inside of 72 hours, like as a scrape for cash. Like there's no way. Like this stuff was getting decided when they hit 100,000 concurrent on Steam during like playtest 3. It would have had to have been. What do you think he said positively for Dark and Darker? He said the game was fun. He's like, it's a really fun game. Like that's what he said. That was pretty much it. He said the game was really fun. Is the DMCA claim over? No. It's still being litigated in Korea. It's probably going to take like 3 to 5 years. It's going to be a long time. But I mean, the DMCA claim got vacated, but the court case over like copyright infringement and all that other stuff, and trade secrets and all that crap that was going on, that Nexon accused Dark and Darker or Iron Mace of, that stuff is still going to be litigated in court. But it's not going to stop Iron Mace from being able to pursue what they're pursuing now. And I don't think we're going to see a follow-up claim. They'd have to appeal the vacating of the case in the U.S. first. It won't affect. It doesn't really have any effect on Iron Mace. I mean, they're going to have a long drawn out legal battle in Korea, but I don't think it's going to have any like actual effect on. It's not going to have any effect on the ability for them to conduct business, at least until the case is concluded. And by then, like the game will, I would assume, have been relatively successful over the next 3 to 5 years. So if the court case does come out and like it gets decided one way or another, and Iron Mace has to like do like a partial cut of like whatever money came from the game to Nexon, then that's what they're gonna have to do. But it's not like they can make people unplay the game at this point. You know what I mean? It'll be monetary. 2% away from mostly positive. Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like the review bomb stuff that happened early on. Like it seems like this dude and like other people have latched on to the Doomer stuff, basically saying like they ruined their shot without having any context as to like the peak concurrent player count at the beginning of season 2 was 27,000, right? So you've got double that as of yesterday, where the counts are going up over time. The player counts have been rising over the last week, right? Like we're like a week and a half into this now since the season went live, right? And like, the player counts are going up. They're not going down. So if anything, Iron Mason, the business decisions that they made, like, yeah, they may have made a couple of mistakes in their eyes at the beginning. There were people that were defending them, myself included, saying that like, normal modes for the game isn't bad. Like most veterans go back to normals because like that's the purest game that you're going to get. But I feel like he kind of missed the mark with giving credence to how the game is increasing in popularity over time, But Steam alone was 46K yesterday, yeah. Do you happen to know what the player count was when it first allowed on Steam or wherever? Was it like a lot less or a lot more? The day that the game came out on Steam, I think it was like 35K, 40K that day, something like that. And then it's only gone up since. Like there's just more and more people playing it. I don't know if the vast majority of them could be free-to-play players that are just kind of trying it out and experiencing it or whatever. And maybe they don't convert into like money spent. I have no idea how that's going to go. All I know is that there's more people in the dungeons now than there was 3 months ago by double, more than that. Probably, a week into last season, I think the player counts, like peak player count was like 22K, somewhere around there. Like, it started tailing off like right after the game came out. Or right after the game wiped. So you got near triple the number of concurrent players peak daily right now than what there was like 3 months ago at this time. I want to see a player base in a month or two down the road with free to play. Yeah, I'm curious to see what it looks like too, right? Like especially after ranked comes out, because like the leaderboards go live tonight. Right, 7 p.m. Eastern, midnight GMT, whatever. But like that was the one other critique I have about this is that he kept saying that like normals, like what people had access to was like the demo version of the game, and then if you paid, you got the full version without, again, like lacking context. Because like, yeah, you get some easing and you get more character slots and like that kind of shit. But to say that HR is the full version of the game really shows that he's never played High Roller before. Because there's no way. Because if you had played High Roller before, you would realize that the full version of the game is normals. Because you would just go back. Anybody without experience, or that isn't like some fucking ultra hardcore like sweaty back Chad, is gonna go back to fucking normal mode and just play normals. HRs for sweaty tryhards and people that want ranked in like it's CS2 ranked. It's CS2 ranked hardcore mode with a little bit better of a loot table. Like most people will just stay in normals and then make money in normals and then buy better gear from the market so that they can go play normals. Especially now that normals gives you like the ability to run gear if you want it, Yeah, and then when the leaderboard comes out, everybody that wants rank goes and plays HR, and everybody, they get shit stomped and people live, people die, whatever. And they go through and they try to get demigod. And then as soon as your character gets to demigod, then you go and play normals again because you don't want to risk your demigod status. Tier GBMM, we need a lot more players for tier GBMM if they're going to do it. Yeah. Because every time that they add a queue tier, it's another 30 queues, because you got 10 servers, and then it's solo, duo, trio, normal, and then HR, solo, duo, trio. Yeah, you need more people. Yeah, I don't know what the breakdown math would be to make it feel like the lobbies are relatively full at each break point, but it's got to be in the like tens plus of thousands of players in order to be able to like have full lobbies on each server for every time that they add a queue. We did GBMM with 8K players last time. Yeah, we did GBMM last time, but it was only GBMM in HR, and it was the same number of queues that they have now, right? Because it was 190, it was 299 and under, right? And then it was plus. And then you had normals, like white gear normals, right? So it's the same number of queues that we have right now, which is 90 across all servers. There'd be 90 queues. So every time that they add another one, rank slot or whatever for tier GBMM, it would be another 30 queues if it was on the normal side, right? Remove solo queue, problem solved. That'll never happen. I think the majority of people playing this game are playing solo.